Hello, welcome everybody back to another Python tutorial video. Today we're going to be going over arrays. Arrays are very cool, very important, very useful. So I'm going to get right through this. Now, an array is just a list of things. And by things, I mean really anything. Any data type in Python you can think of, you can make an array of it. Now, in Python, there are also things called tuples and lists. Those are a little bit different, but they're also somewhat the same. But we're not going to be going over those in this video. Maybe a couple videos ahead, we'll see. But arrays are really useful. Now I'm just going to make an array of things. So let's do. Let's say we're going to make an array of names. So we're just going to do names. And let's say we're going to say like, oh, Nick, Dan, and John, I don't know, Scott, and let's say Peter. There we go. Now, we've just put 5 strings into this thing called an array. Let me bring this up for you. Now we've got 5 names, all separate strings, and they're in a list. You might be asking, what can we do with this? Now, this is where our for loops come in handy. So, we can do this. We're going to do for name in names. I'm gonna print name, and then we're just gonna do yeah, that's it. So we can say that this array, we can run through this whole array. So this for loop will basically go through the first time. It'll set name to Nick, and then it'll print that name. The second time we'll say name is equal to Dan. It'll print Dan. Name is equal to John. It'll print John. Name is equal to Scott. It'll print Scott. And then it'll say name is equal to Peter, and it'll print Peter. And it's done with the array, and it won't do anything anymore. So let's run that. It does exactly what I said. And I mean, that should be pretty surprising in itself, because you can use a for loop and just go through an array as easy as that. So let's go through, let's say, okay, I want to go through an array of multiple different types of things. So let's say different things is equal to Nick 0 stuff tomato tomator and double float, and then we're just going to do true. We're just going to do Boolean. So that's a lot of data types there. Now we're just going to do for thing in diff things. Don't have to do parentheses there. We're just going to print thing. And then it prints all the things in whatever this is doing. So this is pretty interesting. So we're going through this array of many different types. We're going through an array of many different types, like an int. We're going through a string. There's even double in there. There's a Boolean in there, but it's going through the whole thing, and it's basically saying, okay, now I'm going to set thing to whatever iteration we're on, whatever the index is. So I'm going to go through the first one, which is Nick, and then the second one, third one, fourth one, fifth one, and it's just going to print it out. Now, strings do have indexes, but So to arrays. So if we want to do name 0, we're going to print that. Print name 0. Actually, no, we're going to print name 3. And then we're also going to do print diff things dot index 0. Now, basically, what it's going to print out, printing the index number of 3 of name is basically going to say, okay, the first one's 0, the second one's 1, John is 2, but Scott is 3. So you're going to print over here, it's going to say, okay, we're going to print Scott. And then this will find the index of whatever is inside of here. So we're going to print diffthings.index, and that means it's going to find where this is, this right here, is in this array. So it's going to go through Nick, it's going to say, well, that's not equal to 0. It's going to go through 0, it's going to say, oh, look, we've got 0 right there. So there we go. It'll basically say, okay, and I forgot to do names. And it'll say, okay, so down here it says, after all of the things that we printed out here, it says Scott, and then it says 1. So we predicted this one to come out as Scott, and that was true. And then the index is 1. So since we know Nick has an index of 0 because it starts at 0, this 0 has an index of 1. And that's pretty useful. So let's say we want to, find, let's say we have like a list of names like this, and we want to, search through the whole array for these names, that can be done. It's like going through your contacts folder. If we've got a huge contacts folder, and we want to go to, we want to find Nick, then we're going to go through, we're going to see which number contact that is. So I'm going to print that out here. We're going to print names. Now, assume that we don't know where any of them are. We know that Nick is there. So let's say we're looking for John. Let's say John is in our list of names, but we don't know what index he is. We can just do names index and then John. And then basically it'll print out it'll print out John, but it'll also print out, it'll use whatever we gave it. So we know that John is there, it'll print out John. Now that might be a bad example, but it's also useful because we can use that index statement inside of our array. Now you can also add things to arrays. You can add, let's say we want to add something to names. So this is the first time we're going to print out a whole entire array, so I want to print names. So I'm going to print names right here. And it prints out the whole array, just what I gave it. It prints out the whole array, including all the names, including the brackets, the commas, everything. Now, we're going to do names.append, and we're going to add, that's the function used to add something. We're going to do names.append, and then what do we want to add? We're going to add, JT. We're adding JT to this array. And after that, we're going to print names, just to show that we've done something. Now, we added JT, and then it prints the first array. It prints Nick, Dan, John, Scott, Peter. And then it prints the next array, Nick, Dan, John, Scott, Peter, JT. And we've just added it to the array. There's also something that I should probably point out, just like a string, you can also find the length of an array. So we're just going to print names dot, actually no, we're going to do length names. And it prints out 6 because, you know, we added JT, so that means there's 6 names in there. If we did that before, it would say 5 because we only added 5 names at first. But since we added this extra name, it's now 6. The length is 6. Now I'm going to introduce something right now. It's basically something called a multi-dimensional array, and it's basically arrays within arrays. So, you know, let's say you want to make a table of values. Let's say, so you're just going to do like something like this. You're going to create an array with 3 arrays in it. Now this can get sort of confusing because you're like, whoa, it's arrayception. You've got arrays within arrays. But it becomes useful if you're doing, like, you know, if you've ever seen things like tables, you know, Excel probably uses multi-dimensional arrays. A lot of things use multi-dimensional arrays. Maybe you want to make an address book, and you've got 3 people in your address book, but those 3 people all have to have names. They have to have, you know, phone numbers, contact info. You're going to want to have an array for each person just to hold all their data. And in order to have that whole address book, you want that to be an array in of itself. So that shows how useful that they are, and it shows, you know, what you can do with multi-dimensional arrays. And, you know, soon you can start to see, you know, what we can do with them. It doesn't just have to be a table of values or an address book. So that just shows how useful that they are. That's what the next video is going to be about. It's going to be about multi-dimensional arrays. It's pretty much the same thing as arrays, but it's arrays inside arrays. So yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.